Good morning, children. Our today's topic is transmission of impulses. So, what is the definition of synapses? First of all, we are to see this that a nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to the another neuron through a junction called synapses. And synapses is formed by the membrane of presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron. This can be understood by watching this diagram. You can see that this is the cyton, dendron, and axon, and these are the axon endings or nerve endings of one of the neuron. From here, the second neuron starts. So this is the second order neuron, and this is the cyton or cell body of second neuron, and these are the dendrons of the second neuron. Now you know that in the previous diagram you have already seen in the NCRT book itself that I'll show you that diagram. In this diagram you can see very well that the axon endings or nerve endings are actually having knob-like structures. These knob-like structures are called as synaptic knobs. And membrane of these synaptic knobs is called as pre-synaptic membrane. This synaptic knob is shown here. This is one of the synaptic knob, can be shown in the expanded form like this only. So this membrane is called as pre-synaptic membrane, and this pre-synaptic membrane gets synapsed with the postsynaptic membrane of the dendron of the second order neuron. As I was showing you in the previous picture, that from here the second order neuron starts. The second order neuron will have its dendron here. So presynaptic membrane is the membrane of the synaptic knob, and postsynaptic membrane is the membrane of the dendron of the second order neuron. First of all, we are to understand this only. Now come to here. Here, this, as I have already discussed you this one, that the presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron get synapsed with each other. So there is a gap. They may get separated by a gap between these two neurons, and this gap is called as synaptic cleft. Through this synaptic cleft, suppose this is the synaptic knob of the first order neuron and this is the postsynaptic membrane. So this is the gap which is been shown here by blue color. So this gap is called as synaptic cleft, through which the transmission of nerve impulse is required from one neuron to the other neuron through this synaptic cleft. So transmission of nerve impulse through this synaptic cleft is by two types. One is the electrical synapses and other is the chemical synapses. Electrical synapses is as simple as the transmission of nerve impulse through the neuron. Like as electrical impulses were transferring through the neuron, similarly, the transmission of electrical impulse from one neuron to the next neuron takes place. But electrical synapses are very rare in the system. Now it comes the chemical synapses. Chemical synapses, actually what happens that in the synaptic knobs, actually these synaptic vesicles are present. This complete is one synaptic knob in which these synaptic vesicles are present. In these synaptic vesicle, actually a chemical called neurotransmitter acetylcholine is present. Now, when the stimulus is transferred through this synaptic knob, then these vesicles get joined with the presynaptic membrane. So chemicals called neurotransmitter is involved in the transmission of impulses. At the axon terminals, synaptic knobs has vesicle. These vesicles are filled with neurotransmitter, and when the impulse arrives at the axon terminal, from here to the axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of the synaptic vesicle towards the membrane. Movement of the synaptic vesicle towards the membrane. And these synaptic vesicle get fused with the membrane, plasma membrane, that means the presynaptic membrane, and then they release neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter first get filled into synaptic cleft, and then it is received by the receptors which are present on the postsynaptic membrane, and then they open the ions channel so that the transmission of the ions takes place from the presynaptic membrane and through the postsynaptic membrane, that means from the synaptic knob to the postsynaptic membrane of the second order neuron. It is been explained here at the back. You can see that membrane, these synaptic vesicle, when get fused with the membrane, then they release neurotransmitter, and these neurotransmitter first get filled into synaptic cleft, and then they bind with the receptors which are present on the postsynaptic membrane, and then they open the channels which allows the entry of the ions, which will generate a new potential in the postsynaptic neuron, and this way the transmission of nerve impulse takes place from one neuron to the other neuron through the synapses. So this diagram is very much clear that this is the axon, these are the synaptic knob in which these synaptic vesicles are there, which get fused with the presynaptic membrane. Then acetylcholine is released here in the synaptic cleft, and then it gets fused with the receptor of the postsynaptic membrane, opens the ion channel. This postsynaptic membrane is actually the membrane of the dendrons of the second order neuron. So this diagram is showing axon terminal and synapses. So this is all about this topic, that is transmission of impulses. Thank you.